Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Like I've mentioned a couple times, I know attendees are still filtering in. You are welcome to post in the chat. We do have this set up as a webinar, so only our panelists will be able to speak. If you did reach out to somebody about being a panelist and you are unable to speak, then you need to go find the link that Leah sent you that has your panelist link, and that will get you in with the ability to have video, audio, etc. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. This is our first Zoom webinar, Zoom fundraiser. As you can see, we're still working through. Oh, Megan, you're unmuted.
Sorry.
But we are working through some of the kinks of technology, so please let us know as we go through if you're having any issues. We do have Megan here from Democrats Empower Medina who is monitoring the chat and will be helping. As you can see, we have quite a few speakers as well as there will be some continuing to join us. So thank you all for being here. So I'm Belinda Pilger. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the Democrats Empower Medina steering committee members. And we are so excited to be hosting this for Bradford Scott Quade. I've already been amused at the number of previous students who have come in calling him Mr. Quade. So I'm so excited to be supporting Scott. He has been an amazing advocate in Medina County. He has come to, I think, every event or almost every event since we first started as a group. And even before he knew for sure that he was running for something, doing something, he has been so involved in our community and with us. And one of our goals as a club, Democrats Empower Medina, is to make sure that we're supporting candidates, particularly local candidates. So we immediately, jumped on board, endorsed Scott, started helping with his events, helping sponsor tickets, doing fundraisers. I can't even tell you how many postcards we have written or helped written, as well as stamped and mailed and walking in parades. There was a particularly sweltering day in Wadsworth. And we do all of this as a group and as individuals because we do believe in Scott as a candidate, as an individual. He has believed in us. We believe in him. I can't wait to hear everyone talk and talk about, I can't wait to hear what he was like as a teacher. I only know retired Scott, so I'm interested to see what his teaching days were like. I'm sure there will be some fun stories. And we also have some panelists that are, in politics or who are involved locally, and people that are just, inspired by what's happening. Medina has been fairly red for a long time, and it's really exciting to see this blue wave coming. And we hope it keeps coming. So our goal is to, give each of the panelists a couple minutes. We also encourage everybody who's on the call, please share out the Zoom link. Please also share out the Act Blue link for donations. Leah will be dropping those into the chat so that you have an easy way to copy and paste. Put it on your socials. Be like, this is what I'm doing with my Thursday night. You should absolutely join me. It's going to be a good time. And we just can't wait to help get Scott elected in November. So thank you. I believe I was told that Casey Weinstein needed to go first, but I don't know. Is he on the call yet? I don't see him. So I guess, Scott, you get to go next. Oh, Scott, I am not hearing you.
Well, I'm not muted.
Oh,
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. And maybe it's best that you can't hear me sometimes. Again, not going to introduce myself really here. That's going to come through all the panelists, and we'll let that speak for itself, however it comes out. I do appreciate Democrats in Power Medina for setting this up. And this is, first and foremost, it's a fundraiser. So I just wanted to mention very briefly why we need a fundraiser. Okay. All of the funds raised tonight are going to go directly to voter outreach efforts. That is the key, I think. I mean, I've been trying to do that in person, but there are too many thousands of people. So we are doing a lot of mailings, as was mentioned. And one of the biggest expenses there is postage. I mean, we've got thousands and thousands of postcards that have been written, that are still being written. And we need, let's see, roughly 6,000 more postcard stamps at 53 cents a stamp. You can do the math, probably. I don't know, didn't teach you math. We also have ads for online ads and local newspaper ads coming up, and that's not going to be cheap. And we're running out of time. So we really need to try and get some funds rolling in tonight. And I guess really what I want to say is this is only possible with you. Not only the panelists, but all the people that I can't see on the screen that are just tuning in to watch and listen and probably laugh a little bit along the way. You are the key to whatever happens in November. I'm hoping that it's a positive thing. And I really believe it is. I believe it's going to happen. I mean, what I know wasn't going to talk long, but I'm going to take 10 more seconds and say, when I signed up to do this, I was told from the get-go, this is, statistically very unlikely in Medina. Right now, I feel really good about it. And that's just through conversations with people from both parties and independents. And that has been really encouraging. So I'm going to shut up now and we'll move on to the next piece of the agenda. I'm not sure who's introducing that, but I'm going to mute myself for a moment.
So generally introducing next person is me. So I am still not seeing Casey on. Hopefully he'll join when he can get an opportunity. But the next person who's set up to speak is Maria Bruno, who is a former student of Scott's and is also, I believe, heading up Ohio Against Extremism. So Maria, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about that and about Scott.
Hi, everyone. Maria Bruno. I am class of 2008 from Medina High School. I had Mr. Quade, which it is really uncomfortable to call you anything but Mr. Quade. So for the sake of the stories, no, I had him my junior year in language arts. I am working in an organization that is fighting extremism, as it was just mentioned. Actually, we had a launch party last night, and Scott made the trip down to Columbus, which we appreciated. And it's dedicated to, frankly, building political power in places exactly like Medina. I think that I don't actually do partisan campaign activities. Like we're a nonpartisan organization, but when Scott asked me whether I would do this, he was asking as a capacity of a former student. And, literally, you were one of my favorite teachers in high school. And I was like, yeah, I have to. And when I was trying to think of memories, I was kind of a troublemaker in class. I don't know how much you remember, but I know that I interrupted the class quite a bit. Me and Andrea, I remember we're in the same language arts class, one of my close friends. And I also remember that I didn't do the summer reading and that I relied very heavily on the clip notes from the library. And I remember asking you at one point, you had like a quiz at the beginning of the year, and you were like, and I was like, can you tell who like actually read and who kind of like didn't? And you were just like, yeah, I can. You just said straight to my face, like, I know what you did. That was the opening of our relationship. But it was that kind of accountability that he had with students, where it was like still funny and meaningful, and also pointed out that he knew that I didn't read the book. I really appreciate Scott going after this battle. I actually have just appreciated knowing that, he's in Medina doing this work. I remember, actually, I haven't even told you this, but a few years ago, I remember an op-ed or a letter to the editor that you had written about one of the education bills that we were fighting at the State House. And I just was so appreciative that you were fighting the good fight in the local paper while we were fighting at the state house. So I know it's going to be an uphill battle. I know that this is a tough race. I also know that these are the exact type of races you want to be investing in if you actually want to build power on the ground. So I'm really excited to continue to watch this campaign, and I appreciate you even when I was 16 years old and also still now. So I'm excited to watch this campaign, and I hope you can surprise a lot of folks.
Thank you, Maria. I can't wait to hear more about Scott as a teacher. It's been funny because I feel like at points with him I see a little bit of it come out, but also spending time with him at the fair and the Democrat headquarters, and there's also a lot of, I would say, big Midwestern dad energy that I think really works for Scott. So I can absolutely in my head just see him going, yeah, of course I know who read and who didn't read the books. That's fantastic. So then next on our agenda, I have Adam Davis. And Adam, I know you're on.
Yeah, I am. Thank you very much. I'm a graduate of Medina High School from the year 2000. I got to know Scott as my language arts professor, but also as my debate coach. Back then, I think there were like 3 of us. It was not the powerhouse that I think it's gone on to become, but it was a great experience. I think to echo what Maria just said, I honestly can say that I think Scott was the best. For me, he was the best teacher I had at any level of education. I think that I ended up going to Miami University and went to Cleveland State and became a lawyer. And I think a lot of that originally stems from my experience in his class, specifically the debate class. Had such a good experience. It was a very small team. And so I think anytime you have those interactions where you can bounce ideas off of a teacher or ask questions and get that feedback, which he was willing to give. He gave his time. The program was just in its infancy. And so fast forward to my senior year, I asked Scott to write a letter of recommendation, and he did. And that letter, which I still have after like 10 different moves over the last 24 years, really instilled like a sense of confidence in me as a student and as somebody that wanted to learn, and was just kind of like a fork in the road moment for me. And when I heard that Scott was going to be running for office, in the back of my mind, like probably you all thought, like, is there anybody better? I mean, could there be anybody better for this type of job than someone deserving of the public trust, someone who is obviously intelligent but has a good sense of humor, is compassionate. In this day and age, when we think of the types of people that we want in those positions of trust, honestly, that when I heard Scott was running, I thought to myself, absolutely, like this makes perfect sense. And anybody that could spend that much time as a public school teacher, they're on the front lines. They know the issues. They know what's going on in the community. So I think, this is a fundraiser. I will continue to give. I will continue to support, even though I don't live in Medina County anymore, but my folks still do. I still have lots of friends that live and work there. And I just could not be more enthusiastic and happy and excited that Scott is running for this position. And I think just thank you, Scott, and I wish you the best of success in November.
I think we're gonna have to take bets on how many times we make Scott cry tonight, because I think the number's gonna be up there. So I do know also that there were some folks who were unable to make it to the call tonight, and Danielle spent a little bit of time gathering some blurbs from different people who couldn't make it to speak, but who wanted to make sure that their thoughts were spoken to. So Danielle, if you'd like to walk us through those.
Sure. Do you want a long one? You want a short one? How much time do we have?
Go ahead and give me a long one.
Okay. So this is from a former student who unfortunately couldn't make it. And I pared it down a lot because it was very long. And I think Scott has already read this, but I kind of picked my favorite chunks from it. It was all really great, but here we go. It says, Mr. Quade is not just an exceptional educator. He is an exceptional human being. He is a family man, a dedicated community member, and someone who listens intently, takes your words to heart, and channels them into positive action. His character and integrity are boundless, and what you see is what you get. An honest, trustworthy, and principled individual. He stands by his word, and his word is always good. It was a true privilege to have been influenced by Mr. Quade during my youth, and it is an even greater privilege today to support him as he seeks to serve Ohio as the representative for House District 66. His slogan, Liberty and Justice for All, is not just a catchphrase. It was demonstrated in his classroom. His guiding principle, my peers and I were always treated with dignity and respect, and now the citizens of Ohio have the opportunity to experience the same with Mr. Quade as their representative. And I just love that because I also resonate with that. And you were not my teacher, but I have felt, that you are a really great listener and you take the time to understand people and then use that information for good.
Thank you, Danielle.
I might cry.
Are we taking bets on that too?
Yeah.
Are we? I don't know if we're allowed to bet on a fundraising call. Maybe.
Okay, I have more, but if you want to save it, totally fine.
Yeah, I'll probably throw to you again in a couple of minutes. I am going to take a moment and let folks know about some upcoming events that we have. So for people in the Wadsworth area, the Wadsworth Democrats are having a meeting on September 3rd at 6 p.m. They are planning on working on postcards and lit for Scott. So if you would like to join them is it at the Wadsworth Brewing Company? Somebody give me a nod. At the Wadsworth Brewing Company in Wadsworth. That's the place to be. If you're a little more centrally located, we are planning on having a postcard party on September 10th in Medina at Sweets and Geeks. That'll be 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And that'll be down in the basement area where they do D&D and Magic games. And then for those of us in the north end of Medina County, we are going to have a 925 postcards event at Gilbert Winery, and that's in Valley City. And that'll also be 6:30 to 8:30. Most of us work during the day, so we're evening hangout kind of people. So if I said all of that really fast and you're like, how do I see all of these events? Go follow Democrats Empower Medina. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on Threads. I think that's all the places we are. We do also have a website, which is empowermedina.com. So I am going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, and that is going to be Lindsay Brooker.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Brooker. I'm Medina High School class of 2005. And I am here in Virginia, where I am an assistant attorney general and I handle criminal appeals after being a prosecutor for about 8 years. And I will always call Mr. Quade, Mr. Quade. I met him when I was a freshman and I had wanted to take home ec because I wanted to bake cookies and get class credit for it. And unbeknownst to me, my mom changed my class schedule and put me in debate. And I was ticked. I was so mad. I did not want to do it. Despite now having a career where I speak all day, every day for money, I was shy and I was not confident. And so starting the debate class with Mr. Quade really started to get me interested in coming out of my shell a little bit. I've always been a nerd. And so debate turned into kind of my safe space where I could explore different ideas. we had to argue both sides, both because you had to for competitions, but I think also even in class, we prepared both sides. And I think that is a testament to Mr. Quade's belief that really you need to see all sides of an issue to pick your own opinion, to know what you think is right, and to know it because you've looked at all angles, not because someone told you, not because it's what, and social media wasn't a thing when I was in high school, but now, not because the social media algorithms have decided what they think you want to hear and have just repeated it back. And so the critical thinking skills that he taught me, the ability to be always civil and engage kind of in discourse in a way that was professional and respectful. We had some pretty heated competitions with some of the other schools. I had a Highland judge who just hated me. And so trying to always be respectful to him, despite the fact that it always frustrated me that he seemed to discount everything I said for no apparent reason. And I just think that Mr. Quade brings to the political discourse a civility that we lost a long time ago and needs to be brought back, an actual intellectual understanding of the issues and how we should be critically thinking about them. And I think one of my favorite stories is when I was a junior in high school, we flew out to Salt Lake City for debate nationals. And this trip was 17-year-old me, Mr. Quade, both of my parents, and then Miss Graves, now I think Mrs. Ayler, who was a new assistant debate coach. And so 17-year-old me on this trip with a bunch of adults. And we just had a blast. We had a great time kind of spending time together, getting to deal with it when I was eliminated earlier than I hoped to be, but also it was just such a unique opportunity to spend time together kind of as people and getting to know him outside of the context of just my coach and my teacher. And so I could not be more excited to support him, even though I have to do it from afar since I'm in Virginia. But for someone who definitely needed a boost of confidence and to know it was okay to be smart and a nerd and wanting to talk about these things with people, he gave me that when I needed it, and it has led me directly to where I am today. So I want to thank him for that while I have that opportunity, but also just encourage people to keep spreading the word. My parents are still in Medina, so I was talking to them about it this morning, and just, I can't say enough good things and how excited I am. So thanks for letting me have this opportunity to chat.
Well, thank you for calling in from Virginia. I love that. I will actually be heading there for my birthday next month. I have a friend that lives out there, so that's
Ooh, which
very
part?
exciting. So she is out in Charlottesville.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
where I went to law school. You're gonna love it. It's so great.
I hear that you actually get a fall out there. So
You do.
Ohio, it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, I have Sarah. I think I saw.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me. Mr. Quade, it's been so long, but it's so good to see your face on this platform. I'm just like grinning ear to ear and seeing some of my former team members even on this call. So I'm really thankful to be here. So my name is Sarah Coletta, she, her pronouns. I am also a former student of Mr. Quade, not in language arts, unfortunately, but on the debate team. When it had really started to take off, I was really thankful. Graduated in 2011, and it feels like long ago, but maybe not as long as some other people on here. So it's very easy for me to reflect back on all of those memories and the tournaments. I currently serve our community as a perinatal social worker in the NICU. And I really think that a lot of my passion for serving the community came from debate and from Mr. Quade. Yeah, I can't call you by your first name either. So I'm going to continue the pattern of going with Mr. Quade. It was really hard to not start this with a quote and contentions. I really wanted to just like dive in and go all in like former debate style, but I'll try and keep it brief and focus on the important points I wanted to talk about. But you really have been an exemplary model, and you always have practiced what you've preached, and you've always modeled with action. And that really is something that inspired me from the time I was young in high school. And I try to continue that in my practice and my work, but in my life to today. You always inspired our teams, you know, whether it was Public Forum or whether it was Lincoln Douglas. You always allowed us to have these opportunities to learn all of the sides and to challenge us in a way that helped us to learn in the classroom, but to really like apply those to life and what we were going to face once we left high school and what some of us faced even in high school. And you never gave up. And even when we wanted to, when we go to a tournament, and Sydney and I were in our public forum stride, and you know, we ended up losing, you know, you really tried to fight for us because there was an unjust situation with the judges as well. And you know, not to redig up the past, but you were so comforting in those moments, and you inspired us to keep going. And I think that persistence is one of the things I really respect the most about you, is that even when things got tough, even when there was politics within the debate, you know, world, which is shocking to all of us, I know, you just always encourage us to continue on and push forward, because that's what you have to do in life. And I know that that's going to serve you really well when you are elected. I feel very strongly that I can say that. But you really just have always encouraged, you know, self-reflection, to learn and to grow. I've seen that, and I've heard that from other people I've connected with over the years that have known your name. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Mr. Quade. And it always brings like this warmth and this smile. And I always remember you being a family person. Your family was always first, even when you were dedicated to going to those tournaments, to teaching, to staying late, to doing those team bonding exercises. You know, your family came with you a lot of times. And those values, I think, will resonate with a lot of people and help you to just continue on this journey forward. But I really just want to say one of the biggest pieces I wanted to mention on here is your unconditional positive regard for human life. And that just, you can't fake it. You really have to believe in that every person is worthy and deserves that goodness and that attention. And that's one of the tenets I live my life by, and what I practice for the community. And I know that you will too. So we're very lucky to have you running, and we'll be lucky to have you representing all of us, because you're just a good human all around. So it's really good to see you, Mr. Quade, and really thank you for letting me speak. And sorry if it went too long. I could talk for hours. So
Scott assured me that you all knew how to stick to a time limit, so we will be grading you on that. So I do have to ask, and Leah, I think you're going to have to unmute so that Scott can speak, because I think you're somehow on the same microphone. But Scott, how long were you teaching for?
34 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I could have retired a couple of years earlier, but I was not even going to think about leaving until we found somebody who was willing and able to take on the debate program, because that's my professional legacy, and that's the thing that well, I mean, listen to these folks. I mean, yeah. So I waited until we found somebody, and the debate team is in very good hands. And that's what allowed me to retire. Otherwise, I'd still be doing that.
Well, I think if you ever need to ask yourself what your legacy is, I think just look around at some of these panelists here, because, you know, I'm only getting bits and pieces of what they're doing in the real world out there now, but I think you have definitely impacted a lot. So, you know, take that moment and look at your legacy here. And then I see that Matt Deemer has joined us. So Matt, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your friendship with Scott?
How's everyone doing? How you doing, Mr. Quade? How are you? How you doing? My name is Matt Deemer, and I'm running for U.S. Congress. And I met Scott only about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 9 months ago. And I remember our first conversation. We're talking about, you know, he was running for a state rep, and I was running for Congress again, and we wanted to have be able to work together. And Scott is a man of principles. And the first thing he started doing is started grilling me about, what do I believe? Education was number one. Making sure that I wanted to fund schools, fund teachers, and make sure that everybody had a proper education and there was equity within said education. And if I did not sign on to that, then he was going to walk right out of Cool Beans. And I think he was paying that day, so I didn't want to walk out of Cool Beans. So we met eye to eye on a lot of things. No, I think knowing Scott for the past 9 months, I said, is not nearly anywhere near anybody who's been on here. But I see all the people that are here, and it shows what kind of a person Scott is, what kind of legacy he has, how he makes people feel, and what he's done for his community. And then when I look at the State House and the people that the State House is attracting right now, if it's just I'm not gonna trash talk people at this time, which I could, and I know that in private conversations we might, but the people that are being attracted there is not the people that we need in the State House. It's not the people that are going to be advocating for the students, the education, the mom and pops, small businesses. It's people like Scott. And the sad thing about government is that government never the people like Scott, it takes a longer time and a harder time to get people like Scott into office. We need more teachers. We need more truck drivers and craftsmen and artists and musicians and poets in Congress, in the State House. So they are advocating for those people, the people that they touch, the people, the industries that they've touched, the crafts that they know. And so people like Scott in the State House, I think, is going to just come from a place of a place that I don't think government comes from enough. A place of 34 years of legacy, of seeing people grow, of teaching, of learning himself, being a different person probably every school year through every student that he teaches, learning something from them, and then passing that off with hundreds, if not thousands, of teachers, or I'm sorry, students, what he's learned from them to the next student. And we don't have that in the State House. I feel that one thing I want to advocate for more than anything is to get more of our community represented. And equity is we the things that we usually talk about, and is race and sex and religion, all that. But it's also job, it's also culture, it's also upbringing, it's also the shared experiences that you have within your community. And sadly, we just don't have enough diversity in our legislation, and our legislators to have that. And I think if we did have more people like Scott and educators and people who have that 34 years of experience touching his community and the connections that he made with all his students over these years, I really do think that Ohio would be a much different place than it is. And Mr. Quade, I'm not as good as on time limits as your students are, so I don't know if I went over or under, but I'm going to end it there and say, sir, I am very, very honored and proud to be running with you. Your team, the way that you operate your campaign shows the kind of person you're going to be in Columbus. And that's all you need to know about Scott. Just watch him run his campaign. Watch the things that and the values that he instills into the people that he runs with. Watch the inclusivity. Watch the work ethic, and watch the way he gets out into his community. You can't ask for anything else. Thank you, Scott, for running. And thank you for being my friend. And thank you for getting the check at Cool Beans.
Thank you, Matt. And I didn't put you on a timer, so I don't know if you went over or under, but you have become the king of short speeches after the last couple of picnics we've done. So all right, so I'm going to take a pause here and check in with Leah on our Act Blue. I know we've been dropping that link and asking you to share it. Leah, how's that been going?
We're doing really great. I first wanted to thank you guys because we've already raised quite a bit of funds tonight, which are going to really benefit Scott and his campaign. I just wanted to talk for a minute. As a campaign manager, working with Scott has been such a delight because he is such an energetic, caring, enthusiastic person, as I think most people on this call already know. But the amount of energy he has I can't keep up with him. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. It's impressive. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link again, the Act Blue link. If you guys want, please go ahead and share it with your friends. The campaign that we're running is a grassroots campaign, so even $5 makes a big difference.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate it. And I also relate to you because sometimes Scott comes and tells me about all of the places he's been before, wherever I run into him. And it makes me want to take a nap. So Scott, I don't know if you take naps, but if you don't, I don't know how you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw to Ben Furling.
All right, Mr. Quade, I'm going to go ahead and get started here with a 2-minute timer. Hopefully that's good enough for you. No, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, though, my name is Ben Furling. I'm very stoked to be speaking with you today. I'm a graduate of Medina High School from class of 2016. I had the privilege of being a student under Scott as both an AP language student and also part of the debate team for 3 years, which was a really great experience. I got to experience Public Forum, Lincoln Douglas, in a really unique time before Congress and that Congress program really started to take over. And now I'm an employee working in corporate communications at Sherwin-Williams in Cleveland. I'm still here in Medina, so a little bit different than some others. But yeah, again, I'm very stoked to be speaking with you today. I think one story that I just kind of wanted to share with everybody was the first thing that honestly came to mind when Scott asked me to speak about this, which was in one of our debate practices classes, call it whatever you will. And there's something about debate where you prepare these arguments and you prepare these topics, and everybody that's done debate is at one point kind of Googled like, what are people saying about this topic, or they've Googled like, what is the good pro argument here. And so you kind of just get into this rhythm of saying the arguments, coming up with the response questions and everything kind of in between like that. And then it kind of boils down to this point of, how can you authentically communicate it to the judge? How can you prepare the rebuttal speech and everything like that? And so in these classes, these practices, you kind of, I'm not saying you go through the motions, but you do work on other things in the arguments. But there's a moment that really stuck out to me, and it was funny because it stuck out to me, but I remember that it also happened to Jessica Manley, who's also on the call, which is really cool. And we gave our rebuttal speeches, which is really fun. And we stopped the timer. We said, "Thank you, Judge, for your time." And Scott took a moment to say, that might have been one of the best rebuttal speeches I've ever heard. And it's moments like that that just stick out to you in ways that, as a student, hearing it from a mentor or a teacher, they were listening, they were caring, that they, took the time to listen and do the research and do the same things that you were doing when you're getting ready for a competition. So those are things that, coming up on 10 years after graduating and being part of the debate team, it's something that's really stuck with me over time. Scott, I'm really excited for you and your campaign. Being somebody who graduated from Medina, grew up in Medina since I was 4 years, moved to Medina when I was 4, and now I live here. I'm very excited for you to see success in November. We talked about people bashing one another, things like that, but there's something about having real people who care about real policy, which is something that we are deeply missing and deeply caring about, that I just think that you're excelling at. And I'm very, very privileged to be a student of yours and somebody that I can look up to as a mentor. And I appreciate the opportunity for this.
Scott, I hope you're keeping tallies how many times you're tearing up tonight. I see you behind the glasses.
Yeah, I'm not counting anymore. I'm going to interrupt just for a second. For anybody who has never had the opportunity to, it doesn't come up naturally in life where you can get people together to talk about you in a positive way. It's the best. Man, this is yeah, I'm crying, but I'm just loving the hell out of this right now. So while I interrupted, I'm just going to say how proud I am of where all of you have gone with your lives. That's something that teachers don't often experience, and this has just been amazing. But what you're doing with your lives and your character, your integrity, it's just blowing my mind. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Scott. That was this has been, it's sort of like, and this is going to sound very macabre, so stay with me for a second. A lot of times people wait until they have a funeral and everybody says really, really nice things about the person. And this is a much better, much more positive way to do that. And I love that for us. I'm scheduling mine for my birthday. You should all come back, at least the ones of you who know me, and say some nice things about me. I love this. So I noticed that our next student seems to have been unable to make it. So Danielle, I am going to throw to you for another one of your blurbs from folks who couldn't make it tonight.
Sure. And so something that someone said, was that Scott is so involved in his community. He literally is everywhere. I'm sure if we were following him on Life 360 or, Find My Friend or whatever it is, he would just be all around everywhere all the time. And he has been a huge supporter of the Wadsworth Democratic Club. And, a lot of us live in Wadsworth. And so the rest of the blurbs that I have for you tonight are all from Wadsworth friends. So I'm going to read one. This says, Scott makes every effort to get to know the people in his community, regardless of their political affiliation. He actually gets to know them. He goes to events, meetings, hangs out with them. I truly believe he will make decisions and back up legislation that benefit the people in his district. And that is from Megan in Wadsworth.
Thank you.
I was going to say,
Danielle.
I'm so glad you read that, even though I'm on here, because I don't know if I could do it without crying. So I'm glad it was read by someone else.
I did immediately go, wait, Megan from Wadsworth, and then I was like, well, there are lots of Megans in Wadsworth, so you could have just pretended it was another Megan.
Right. I wasn't going to out anybody.
All right. So looking down, it looks like our next speaker is Michelle Bellinger, who is a local author who has reached out previously and said, hey, I live in Medina County, and what can I help with? So we are very grateful to have you on with us tonight.
It's Belanger, but that's okay because nobody in these states can pronounce it. You might if you watch ghost hunting shows, you might recognize me. My pronouns are all and any because I'm probably the only openly visible intersex person working on US television right now. I'm the outlier here because I did not go to Medina High. I went to Highland, hold the booze. But I've lived in Medina for 20 years now. Although I've worked in New York, LA for Wizards of the Coast and Marvel, the Osbournes, a whole bunch of different things. I am very much Ohio born and bred. And what first caught my attention with Quade's platform here was I saw fiscally conservative described in the way that I identify, even though for most people, they're just like, what does that really mean? Because to me, fiscally conservative is putting the money money's going to be in politics, but putting it where it needs to be, which is in the hands of the people that it is meant to serve. And reading through the website that Scott has put together, that's the first place where I really felt my views were seen. I have lived in Medina for 20 years. I am an intersex goth who chases ghosts on TV. So my survival technique in Medina for the first 10 years especially was to keep my head down and hope nobody noticed me. It is not necessarily a very open-minded place, even though we have some amazing creative folks, but we all try to fly under the radar because it's been very, very aggressively read for a while. But the other thing that really got me is I went to Highland. I graduated in 1991. I was one of 2 National Merit Scholars in that year. The other one was Daryl Morey, who went on to manage the Houston Rockets. I went on as a National Merit Scholar on a full-ride scholarship, got my degree in comparative religious studies, and weirdly landed in reality TV chasing ghosts and advising people on how it's not a demon, but not where any of my teachers, I'm sure, figured I would go. But I was a poor kid. My mom was a single mother. She went to Kent State. She had me when she was 20. And if we did not have the robust public school system support that we did in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s, I would never have been able to be on the career path that landed me in a very cozy house with a dragon's hoard of books behind me. And one of the things that's really been gutting me in recent years is watching how folks on the other side of the aisle really have been intent on undermining and eroding our education system, especially in terms of public schools. And seeing someone who not only is passionate about it and says that they want to fix it, somebody who has been in the trenches and understands, and hearing from all of the students makes me just want to shout to the hills. Like I'm over here on my Twitter account being like, hey, Linda Carter, hey, like pulling in all of my friends from various places, being like, hey, you want to boost this, please? Like, I don't know if you'll see this, Mark, but hey, give it a pop. So I am. The other cool thing I want to say is I live in a neighborhood that, for lack of a better term, is bright bleeding red. And while there's been a few things changing, there are a couple of houses that I've seen your signs go up on, several of whom I would not have expected. And that tells me that you are doing a fantastic job of finding a way to bridge the gap across the increasingly divided aisle so that people who really want to pursue a nation and a government and a local government where we are actually looking out for one another, where we actually put the effort into infrastructure and mutual support, bringing those together. So that's my thing. I am your cheerleader all the way.
We appreciate you cheerleading. We appreciate you boosting and using your celebrity powers for good.
They're useless otherwise, trust me.
And I do want to say, Scott, I have always appreciated how you have reached across the aisle, even to your opponent. I know that in the primary, that your opponent was primaried, and you were very firm on, I'd like to run against someone reasonable. Remember the other option being a little more chaotic, but also just calling out your opponent when she does something that you respect, and that's something that I see on your page, and that I really do respect, is when when you feel like that she's doing the right thing for our community, that you are boosting it, and not just hiding it under the rug or taking the opportunity to just talk about yourself. You are really going for what is for the best for our community, and I really respect that. And I'm going to throw to Leah, who I believe has some very exciting news for us.
Yes, guys, we have gone over the $500 mark. Thank you so much. It is amazing. I appreciate all that we've done so far. The exciting thing that we also have is Lori Molnar has put up a $50 match. So if we can match that in the next 10 minutes, that will be a $100 donation then that we will have in general. So I'm going to post that into the chat, and let's see if in the next 10 minutes, if we can get the $50 so we can get our match. And then I'm going to throw it over to Veronica.
Hi, I'm Veronica Toth. I was a 2012 graduate of Medina. I had Quade. I wasn't sure if it was going to come out Quade or Scott, so now we know. I had him for both AP Lang and debate for a couple years. Debate and Mr. Quade are always on my mind because I'm a PhD student in English. I teach rhetoric and composition. So in a lot of respects, I'm doing a lot of the same work that Scott has inspired me to do. And I think of debate and I think of Quade every time I teach my students rhetoric, especially. Every semester I tell them that our contemporary political climate functions largely through the straw man fallacy, like setting up this like really ridiculous, stupid sounding sort of idea of your opposition and knocking it down really easily. And I was taught to recognize that in debate because, as Lindsay was saying, debate hinges upon building the best possible case for each side. And as students, we didn't know what we thought yet. We were actively deconstructing so many things that we thought we believed because we had looked at the pros and the cons under Quade's leadership and talked about them at length and had our opinions treated with dignity, but also like we're required to think critically and clearly and carefully. I'm a PhD student. I've taken just an obscene number of classes at this point. Debate has been the #1 most formative class I have ever taken as a student. And it's because I have learned so much about reasoned argumentation. And I think all of us have seen that in Scott and recognize that that's something that can draw bipartisan support and makes him such an exemplary political candidate. Just a note too on my experience in debate. I have seen about Scott that he does not give up on people. And he is the sort of person who thrives on seeing other people flourish, both individually and systemically. That's where a lot of his policies come from. So when I joined debate, I was kind of doing it really quietly. And I was like, well, I give it a try and it's not really for me. So I was kind of planning on fading out of the class. And I think with a lot of other teachers, they would have let that happen. Like, the kid wants to quit. Yeah, whatever. But Scott, in his infinite wisdom and coercion, sort of behind the scenes paired me up with another person and was like, wow, they really need you. They can't go to the competition without you. So I was, all but like pushed into another tournament where I competed and qualified for states with my partner. And that was such a massive boost to my own belief and my own competence in so many areas. I, for years afterwards, used that experience as evidence that I could accomplish things that seemed daunting. So for his belief in reasoned debate, for his refusal and resistance to strawman his opponents, and also for his refusal to give up on people, we are so honored and pleased to support Quade and speak well of him right now.
And did I catch that you're a teacher yourself now?
I am. Yep, I teach at the college level.
Fantastic. So, I don't know, grand legacy, Scott. You taught people who are teaching people, and long after now, there will be students out there saying things that you said to your students years ago. All right, so let me get back on my schedule here. I apologize, I've been monitoring too many screens. So let's not forget that we have the donation match going. Please make sure that you have shared that link, friends, family. What I did last year when we were doing some of our issue 1 postcards was I sent some links out to some of my family in very blue states and said, you guys have your stuff under control. You can help fund our stuff. So, if you have a couple of family members or friends in, like, oh, I don't know, Virginia, Maryland, some of the states that are having a better time of it than we are, it might be a good time to have them send us some donations. So, all right. So I'm going to move to our next person, who is Jessica Manley.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Manley. Currently, I'm a fund development coordinator for the Girl Scouts of Northeast Ohio, but many years ago, I was one of Mr. Quade's students. I actually wanted to write out what I was going to say, which is a tip I got from Mr. Quade, so I don't ramble on and on. So if I look up and down, that's why. When I look back on my time as Mr. Quade's student or on my interactions with him as an adult, it's hard to find the words to sum up the impact he's had on me. I also don't think anyone here is particularly interested in me rehashing my high school experience, but I did kind of want to go back and highlight some things because I think they're a good reflection of who Mr. Quade is. For me, my first experience being coached by someone was playing volleyball. Unfortunately, the coach that I had was very discouraging, and I kind of felt like I wasn't good enough. So in high school, I gave up on volleyball and decided maybe I'd try something different. I thought about tennis or marching band. And then I saw a class offered my freshman year that sounded interesting, Intro to Debate. I took Intro to Debate my first semester of my first year at Medina High School, and on my very first day of school, I got to meet the debate coach, Mr. Quade. Today, I think of Mr. Quade as kind, the type of guy who wouldn't hurt a fly, but I'll be honest, on that day, he scared the crap out of me. After introducing himself, Mr. Quade told our class that this course was going to be one of the most difficult, time-consuming, and work-intensive classes that we could ever take. He said, if you don't think you can handle that, then just drop the class today. For whatever reason, even though it did sound daunting, I wanted to stay. And eventually, the deadline to drop the class had passed, and Mr. Quade introduced us to the first topic we'd be debating on. It was, a unilateral military force is justified to prevent nuclear proliferation. So I'd like to pause here and point out that Mr. Quade tells it like it is. He's honest and he expects the people who are going to show up to be the ones ready to put in the work and get the job done, even when it's difficult. I'm confident that as an Ohio representative, Mr. Quade will be direct in addressing what matters, and he's going to put in the effort required to do an exceptional job. And he'll inspire his colleagues to do the same. I know this because that's exactly what he did for me. Like I said before, I never had a coach who believed in me, but the first few times I gave speeches in his class, Mr. Quade looked at me and complimented me on what I had to say and told me he thought I was going to do really well. Another thing I'll point out is if Mr. Quade gives you a compliment, it feels really special because you know he means it. You also know that he truly listens because he is specific and elaborate when he gives you feedback. He is genuine and he cares. Mr. Quade saw something in me, and when I finally started to feel like I was good enough, he coached and motivated me to be even better. The most important thing he taught me was that words are powerful and they matter, but not just words, my words. And as you've heard today, he taught many students that their words mattered too. Right now, I wish I had more words or the right words to express how grateful I am to Mr. Quade for listening to me, encouraging me, and teaching me. And to you all, I want you to know that my experience with him is not unique. As he said, he taught for 34 years. Mr. Quade is someone who will listen, not just hear you. He's honest, effective with his words, which are informed by a wealth of knowledge, and he will give you all that he can to do a good job, even when it's difficult. Thank you for listening, and I really hope that you guys help and support Mr. Quade.
Thank you so much, Jessica. All right. Danielle, do you want to take this opportunity to read a couple more? I think you said the rest of the blurbs are from Wadsworth folks.
Yeah, these I'm gonna just shoot out 3 kind of shorter ones that just are explaining why people are choosing to vote for Scott already, like locked in, already got their votes. I intend to vote for Scott because I believe he has the best interest of all Ohioans at heart and will fight for us in Columbus. And after hearing all of this and just like hearing about his determination and all of like, and I know that about him too, like he would fight for us. I will be voting for Scott because I believe he is a strong advocate for our district and I'm confident in his ability to move us forward. And I love that too, because everyone's been talking about just kind of reaching across the aisle and extending olive branches and just trying to hear all sides of things. And I believe that that is helpful in moving us forward. And I'm voting for Scott Quade because he has an understanding of what it takes to make a positive change in our district. He is a good communicator and has a true sense of what leadership is. And again, I feel like that is shown with all of these stories from past students.
I also absolutely adore whoever in the chat is using the hand raise function to do like the praise. It took me a minute to figure out what you were doing, but I love it. Keep doing that. So I'm going to move to Rachel Rogers.
Hello, Mr. Quade. Thank you, Mr. Quade and Leah, for the privilege to support Scott today. Mr. Quade knew me as an ill-informed 16-year-old during the Bush era back in the early aughts, and I was lucky to take 2 years of debate and public speaking with him. And I graduated in 2003, and because of Mr. Quade, I became a philosophy teacher, an English teacher, a learning specialist, most importantly, a better human being, really. So I'm just going to be brief, but Mr. Quade, you are a tireless humanitarian. The countless hours you have sacrificed for your community speak for themselves. Okay, I'm getting caught. You are the best educator I ever had in my entire education experience, to echo what Adam Davis said already. And what I'm really excited about is you are already a public servant. So you're not going to just be a politician, which we so frequently see now. We kind of see these 2 tracks of just politicians and normal people, but I really think that you have already proven yourself as a public servant. That's exactly the type of person that we need in office. You have the level of character we need in office. And I can't wait to see you elected. And I really can't think of anyone I've met who would be better for this job. And I'm so excited to be able to support you in any way. Thank you massively for your influence, for teaching me to understand both sides of an argument. Has been invaluable in my personal and professional life. And again, that's exactly what we need in a politician or a civil servant. So I can't wait to see what you do in this next act and support you in any way I can. So we may not agree on every issue, but I would definitely support you hands down in any way I could. So congratulations on your race, and I can't wait to see you win.
I absolutely love tireless humanitarian. Leah, I would like that on a t-shirt, please. So, Leah, how did we do with our match? Did we make our match happen?
Yes, you guys are amazing. Not only did we make our match, but we are up to $940, which is huge for Scott's campaign. Thank you guys so much. I know that we're doing so amazing here tonight, but I'm wondering if we can get to $1,000 on this call. So I'm going to post the link again. If you can, please share it on your social medias. Thank you guys. And I'm going to throw it to our next speaker, who is Kelly Dempsey.
Hi, I'm Kelly Dempsey. I'm a 2002 graduate of Medina High School. Similar story to several others. I was in Medina in the late 90s, early 2000s, where I feel like the teachers, there were a lot of really good teachers. And, you know, now being 22 years out of high school, which I still can't believe that number's coming out of my mouth. I look back and there's only really a handful of names that still stand out to me. I did have the pleasure of playing tennis under the great Mr. Kelly. So, you know, rest in peace. But Scott was another name that stands out to me. And, you know, I can call him Scott now only because Becky, whose daughter Marina was supposed to speak, we collided on a path at the gym a couple months ago. And when she started talking about Scott, she's like, Scott's running for House. And I was like, Scott. And she said, Scott Quade. And I said, I'm in. Tell me how I can help. I want to be there. Because of the memorable experiences. I, similar to others, also went on to the attorney career path. In the non-traditional space, I don't practice in court, but I'm a vice president of a consulting company. I actually have worked remotely before it was cool. I worked for a company in Boston that has grown exponentially, but I work in healthcare space specifically. And when I think back of my time at Medina, I also had Scott for AP English, and then I went on to do debate. And I was late to the debate ball game. It was my last semester, my senior year. I don't know, as somebody who, when I went to my high school reunion, 20th reunion, when everybody said, oh, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm an attorney. Everybody said, I'm not surprised. Do you like to argue? Well, sorry, that's who I am. But I was late to the debate ball game. And, you know, Scott was very honest with me when I signed up for it. He said, you know, you're not going to have a lot of time. You're not going to have a lot of chances to go at it. You're really going to have one competition because you're at the end of the time. But even though I was late to the ball game, he threw all his effort and you know, soul into helping me succeed, even though I only had one shot. I literally had one opportunity, one debate competition to go to. And I came out in the middle of the pack, which was apparently really good for the first time. I don't remember any of it other than I remember being told I got screwed by one of the judges, and that I should have won one of my negative arguments, and that would have placed me significantly higher than I was. So I really remember that. But when, you know, like I said, when Becky said that Scott was running, I'm born and raised in Medina. I've lived here most of my life. I find this county entirely too red for my liking. And, you know, I think that we have a lot of people that have been in a lot of positions for entirely too long, and it's time for change. I, you know, helped with other previous campaigns of different elected officials that have been in positions of power for entirely too long. So I'm here. And, you know, when I think of Scott, I think of somebody who's level-headed and calm and rational. And he really does want the best for his students and everybody around him. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to support him, was because I believe he can do great things and he actually cares. And there's, you know, we've lost the levee far too many times here in Medina. And as Scott is somebody, like everybody has said, has been in the trenches. I think it's important to put somebody who has that real world experience, you know, at a higher level to do more good, because it's time. And I'm sure I'm way over my time, so I will stop talking because I can also talk all day long. But honored to be here and honored to have Scott ask me to speak, and really happy that I actually managed to not cry.
So Scott, I have a question for you. When you had them timed for all of their debates, did you have like a buzzer or something?
We had time signals, 3 minutes remaining, 2 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds, and stop. And if you got to this one, you had about 10 seconds. Or, we basically just stopped listening. No,
Oh, okay.
Tonight. I'm not going to do the hand signal thing tonight.
I'm gonna let your campaign manager tuck that away for future knowledge, though. All right. And then I see that Andrew was able to join us. Andrew, if you'd like to go ahead and speak.
Yeah, I'm starting my 3-minute timer here. Get things rolling. I think two things that stick out to me. One, I've seen Scott change both myself and countless students' lives through the care and thoughtfulness that he approaches everything with. He, as both a debate coach, as a teacher, but also just as a mentor to an entire high school, had a huge impact on numerous students that I was able to see firsthand, and literally change the trajectory of students' lives. And I know that he can do that as well as an elected official for the state of Ohio more broadly. And that's something that I'd love to see, because I do not think that standard elected officials have the care and the thoughtfulness that Scott Bradford Quade has. So that's kind of one bucket of get behind Scott, because he cares about people and he makes sure that he helps people in the way that he can most thoughtfully. The second thing is throw politics away, just throw it all away. Scott approaches every issue and he tells all students to, listen, think, then speak. That was roughly the quote that was told to us as debate students. And that's something that'll stay with me for the rest of my life. And I know that that's something that Scott will approach every single issue with. And that is so far away from anything that any politician, I think, approaches issues with. And I think that approach that Scott takes to everything, to me, takes away the politics of things and really looks at an issue regardless of what side of the aisle it falls on, and I know he thinks critically about every single issue, and really evaluates it from a ground up basis prior to having preformed judgments. And that, to me, is something that doesn't exist in politics and that Scott can bring to the table. And I don't care what anyone's opinions or political views are. You've got to vote for this guy because he is the one with the correct thoughtfulness, the correct judgment, and the correct approach to critical issues. And that's, to me, the most important thing. You could disagree with every single issue that he might be behind, but you've got to understand that he's approaching it with a really critical eye and thinking through things fully, just like a debate coach or a debate student would. And that's what all of us learned from Scott, and that's, I think, what he'll bring to the table. And I would be so excited to see him serve Ohio, and couldn't think of someone better to serve the state. I think that, if I look at my timer, we're coming up on 3 minutes here, but just, yep.
I really, if we were gonna have real fun tonight, I would have brought one of those like the chess clocks. I don't know, something that I could hit. I'm not quite to Scott levels, but
I think by my time we did have iPhones, so we were using
okay.
iPhones, but
we moved on to the technology. Although I do believe that I personally witnessed Scott's first selfie. So I believe that I was a part of that amazing experience. Oh, Leo, you gotta unmute.
We're good.
I was gonna say it did not go well. Those of you who have seen me try to interact with technology know that it's just not me.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move to Dan.
Hi, yeah. My name's Dan Whitmire. I'm a Medina High School class of 2000 graduate, and today I'm a marketing strategist at an ad agency outside of Cincinnati. So my senior year back 24 years ago was right around the time debate started as a club. So Adam was there. It was a ragtag few of us. It was not the well-oiled machine that it became, but it was starting to click. I was getting better at it, but the season was heading to a close. There was one tournament left, but it conflicted with another extracurricular. I also played trumpet in the show choir pit band. So one Saturday morning, I was supposed to be in two places at the same time. I wanted to do both, and I was pretty sure the show choir could take an earlier time slot, so I talked to the choir directors. But you guys have heard of the carrot and the stick. The choir directors believed in the stick. So they told me they had no control over the times. They guilt tripped me pretty hard about potentially letting down the rest of the group. And they told me if I chose debate over them, they'd kick me out of every choir production for the rest of the year, my senior year. So with no doubts about where they stood, I went to talk to Mr. Quade. I told him what was up, and the first thing he asked me was what I wanted to do, which was a very different start to the conversation than the one I had just had with the choir directors. So after explaining how I wanted to do both, and I suspected there were earlier times available, Mr. Quade suggested I needed a third-party mediator who they'd have to take a little more seriously than either of us. So it was on his advice that a nerdy high school senior who'd never been in any trouble strolled into an office he'd never been in before and asked to see the principal. And I still remember the confusion on the secretary's face. It's like, did someone send you to see the principal? Nope, I just had a problem and I thought Dr. Osepic could help. And she did help. There were absolutely earlier time slots, and she forced the choir to take the earliest one. So I did do both. And I had a great debate tournament that was honestly a highlight of my senior year. But now I look back, and it's not about how I performed in that tournament. It's about the difference in those two conversations. I'm sure Mr. Quade had his own personal reasons for wanting me to go to the debate tournament that Saturday. The man said earlier he waited to retire because debate was his professional legacy, but he never put that pressure on me, which ultimately is a lesson about leadership, which I took with me. And today in my career, it makes me think about how I want to act and who I want to be. I want to hire people who are smarter than me, who can challenge how we get things done in the smartest way. I want to be the type of leader who cares more about my employees and their career paths than my own. I want to be the type of leader who gives my people opportunities, takes away challenges, and get the hell out of their way. That's the type of leader Mr. Quade was. That's the type of leader he taught me to be. And it's that type of leadership we all so badly need in Columbus.
Thank you, Dan. That was very inspiring. Oh, we got Scott again. All right, and I'm going to throw to Danielle. I think you have one or two more to read.
Yeah, so I have a blurb from an activist in Wadsworth that I'm going to read to you, and then I might piggyback some things off of that because I also vibe with this. So it says, Scott has taken the time to invest in the younger generation, and for that I am grateful. He jokes with us, shared his special needs animals with us, and has had real conversations with us. At the core, he's a relationship builder, and that is so incredibly important in the political world. For me, it has made politics and activism more approachable, and I truly believe he's the perfect person for this job. And so as an activist myself, and very new at this, I mean, I met Scott like when I just started jumping into this. and started helping with his campaign. And he gives the compliments that are genuine and he says thank you. And I don't just feel like a little worker bee that's like endlessly doing tasks for someone who is unappreciative and doesn't see me as a person. And just like his students who really have felt like heard and seen and understood and listened to, I have felt the same. And it's so important because I was really standoffish about politics prior to this. And I felt like every time I dipped my toes in or met some people, I was very turned off by a lot of it. And it just so happened that I met him and I met this really great group of people, Democrats Empower Medina. And we all were like taking the time to meet these people, understand people, learn about people, and build relationships. And that's why I call him a relationship builder. And I think that's important in politics, both sides, all the sides, and in people and representing people. It's all about people. And that's truly like him to the core. So just my little spiel.
Thank you, Danielle. So I see that Megan has mentioned Scott's farm. So I sadly missed the postcard event where everyone got to meet Scott's animals. And I think you were recently babysitting some puppies. I don't think those are permanent additions to your. No, okay. But the number of photos of the gang of misfits that Scott has opened his heart and his home to, including very on the nose a donkey. I think just speaks a lot to Scott and the size of his heart and making sure that everyone is taken care of. And I can say as someone who has assisted with the campaign, that I have sort of experienced firsthand. I never had Scott as a teacher, but early on in helping volunteer for his campaign, there were some other folks who were also campaigning that seemed to think that everybody who volunteered for a campaign was just part of their campaign too. And immediately Scott was there to make sure that like we weren't overextending ourselves and nobody was taking advantage of our time, and just very very like protective teacher mode. And I just appreciate that Scott is always looking out for his volunteers and making sure at the parade, is everybody drinking enough water, is everybody being taken care of. So yes, I see the teacher and the dad in Scott in everything that he does, politics or not. So I believe.
Linda, should I chime in very quickly with the sunscreen story?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, I was volunteering at we have an event in town, Balloons Over Wadsworth, so hot air balloons, and I was volunteering. I was helping with parking, and the sun was frying me. And Leah, we're in a chat, and Leah's like, "Well, Scott's on his way up there, and he can bring sunscreen." And this man comes with sunscreen, walks all the way through this parking lot where I'm working, volunteering, and gets me sunscreen so my little cheeks did not burn anymore. And it felt like just such like a dad and caring moment. And I'm just like, what other politician just shows up with sunscreen to protect people that he cares about? I don't know. I'll never forget it.
Thank you. All right. And so I believe that our last speaker, last but certainly not least, is Shelly, who I have in here as co-worker. Did you guys teach together then?
We actually did. We were colleagues at Medina. I was at the high school a little bit before Scott, but not much because Scott was at the middle school or the junior high at that point. It wasn't called a middle school then. So we were coworkers, actually both language arts teachers. So in the same department, worked in the same space. And so my perception of Scott, because public school teachers do not get a lot of free time, because back in the day, we probably each had over 100 students. in the course of the day. So all of these students who are saying these things, first of all, Scott, holy cow, to be able to hear these things that brought to life from these people is truly special. Truly, truly special. And public school teachers, any school teacher really, takes such great joy in hearing that. So for all of you, that is a gift, all on its own. And I know him well enough to know how this was making him feel. We actually didn't have too many years at the high school where we taught the same subject, but we did have one year that we did. And so my perception of Scott would be that he was definitely the academic. He was definitely always looking at the things very as a planner and very organized. And I would like to think I was too as a teacher, but he would follow things much more to the letter, and I did not. I was the free spirit. I did things way outside the box. We taught a similar lesson regarding Thoreau and civil disobedience. And he probably did not teach it the same way I did, because I basically instructed my students to freely go civilly disobey in the building. And then I had to be a little bit accountable to that. So that in my life now, I would say, as a former teacher, I've not taught for 24 years, but now as an activist and wearing that hat, I cannot tell you how important it is to have somebody like Scott in being willing to do this. The public teacher hat that he wore for so many years was a really great launch pad for this kind of work. I mean, I think that it makes all the difference in the world, especially what's happening in Columbus with public education and really the affront to education that's happening all over the country. But for our purposes in getting him elected, what he can do in Columbus. Leah asked me to talk about Medina politics, and for many of you who are saying this is such a red place, Medina politics is, to coin a very favorite word right now, really weird. It is so weird. It used to be, for many of you who maybe are remembering when you lived here and don't anymore, it was extremely red. And while it presents red now, I would not call it red. I would call it red adjacent, leaning to purple, but it's even doing a little more than that. And that is what I have seen in my work here. So the most important thing that you can be doing is directing anyone and everyone that you know in this district, even if you're no longer here, to make sure that they are taking that step to do some good relational organizing, reaching out like you are, providing your links, to encourage them to realize that they're not alone. I know Kelly mentioned how she said it felt like it's not really happening here. All you have to do is look at the Dems Empower Medina, some of my troublemaker friends, and some of the things we've been doing are getting a little bit of attention. And I think it's our job sometimes with that to keep pushing. I call myself a drippy faucet. So I love being a drippy faucet for Scott, because I feel like what he's done is unique. He is stepping into this, and it's hard, but it's offering people here who feel really frustrated by some of the other things they're seeing. He's a safe place to land. So many of you students said that. He was a safe place to land for you. Debate was a safe place to land for you. And when you've got a person who can think this way, and really, he's out there all the time, you guys. He is at everything, showing up, doing the work. And I don't know that we've seen a person do that in our county and our district the way he's doing it in a very, very, very long time. So I am really proud to be talking about him and taking selfies with him and doing all of that because he really is doing very hard work. And I can't wait to see him down there cooking up some good trouble. So thanks, Scott.
Okay, but I gotta know, Shelly, are you the one taking the selfies or is Scott?
Well, hey, you know what? I will tell you, we were up at the Cleveland Urban Winery the other night, and he wanted somebody to do the picture. Now, he had somebody take it for us, but I have taken it upon myself as my mission to document all of this good trouble we're making in Medina County for the history books. So I do a lot of that photography, and I'm happy to. A lot of the photos I've seen Scott use are photos I took too. So I do love doing that. So I pay for extra storage because I can't bear to part with them. They're part of my story, so, and other people's. But yeah, I'm thrilled you guys did this. This was really terrific.
All right. So coming in at the end of the call here, Michelle Belanger has announced that they and their wife are going to do a matching donation up to $500 for the rest of the call. So anybody who puts in $50, they'll match that 50 up to 500 by the end of the call. And I did realize, and I'm so sorry, Emily, the agenda that I ended up with didn't have your name on it, so I realized I skipped you. And thank you, Megan, for calling out that I had done that. So I am sorry that I made you wait till the end, but I'm sure it's going to be the best story. No pressure.
Now I feel pressure, but also the whole time I was like preparing for this, and I was like, I can't make a comparing Mr. Quade to Tim Walz joke because like everyone's gonna do that. But now I can because I know it's safe. So I was like, Mr. Quade is the perfect person to run for office. He's a public school teacher. He has that Midwestern. He understands just like the basic people and the problems in the world. And then Tim Walz had to come in and he stole your thunder, and that's not fair. But in all reality, similar to a lot of people who have spoken, I came into debate. I don't know why I took debate. I did like arguing with people, but I didn't like public speaking a whole lot. And so I don't know what my goal was. So I made it through the intro class, and then I was doing public forum debate. And the first tournament was going to be at Georgetown. And I was like, not sure how I felt about competing, but I really love traveling and I really love DC. So I was like, well, I have to go. And then my partner and I ended up winning the novice division. And I will never forget Mr. Quade said, I made a couple predictions about this weekend, and that was on there. And so just to have that confidence from a mentor and someone I looked up to was really important. Some of the other things I remember from my debate days, one of the most important things I remember every tournament we were at, it was very important. We were not going to leave until the last person on our team was done competing. And so to have a coach demonstrate we're not leaving anyone behind, everyone on this team is important and they deserve our utmost respect. I don't think that's something we see from a lot of politicians and a lot of elected officials. But I think it's really, really important, and it's a good attitude to have. The other thing that I think trait of Mr. Quade's that really just speaks to how great of an elected official he's going to be is his dedication to hearing all sides of the debate. So like other people have said, there were times that we would be giving speeches at 15, 16, 17 years old, and he would sit there after them and tell us, wow, that's a good perspective. I've never thought about it like that. And so obviously, if he's someone who's going to do that with a whole bunch of high schoolers, that's the right person that we need leading our community and listening to all the voices. I'm currently in my second year of law school, and we're doing 2-person oral arguments, and I'm like blown away by the amount of people who have committed to going to law school but aren't willing to look at other perspectives and aren't willing to represent those perspectives. And me, I'm just like, oh, this is another public forum debate. I got this, me and a partner debating. but I just think all of those things, and then on top of that, just all of his own time and resources that Mr. Quade put into debate. I always remember when we were going on a trip, it was, this is how much it costs, but if that's going to be a problem, come talk to me and we'll figure it out. And I think that attitude is something we don't see very often in our elected officials. And hopefully after this fall, we'll have both Mr. Quade and Tim Walz having that attitude.
Thank you, Emily. And I'm being told that Andrew has something else that he wants to say.
Yeah, I think so. It's been 10 years since I've had Mr. Quade as a teacher / debate coach / mentor. And hearing some of the other speakers has brought some memories back. So I just wanted to say two more things. One, on the, I think there was in the chat that Mr. Quade's a genius, and it's crazy that he was a high school teacher. And I just want to echo that. Whether I was in undergraduate classes, high school classes, graduate school classes, or once I entered the professional world, I can honestly say that Mr. Quade was one of the smartest, most impactful mentors that I've had in my life thus far. And to have that as a high school teacher in Medina, Ohio, is unbelievable. And when someone has that type of knowledge, that type of wisdom, and chooses to use that to empower and to educate children in a public school system, there's nothing more that can show the level of service that someone has. And just want to underscore that for Mr. Quade. And then the second piece, I think someone said that he shows up, and it's really unbelievable looking back. I think maybe I didn't take, I appreciated Mr. Quade when I was in high school. That was never a doubt, but I don't know that I had the level of appreciation that I have now, that this guy was a public school teacher showing up every day in class, teaching students, whether it was English or debate. But then on top of that, spending literally all of his weekends, and even after class time as well, from September through March on debate. And the impact that his time, whether it was after class or during his lunch hour, that he spent with me writing college essays or helping debate cases, getting ready for tournaments, or whatever it was, the amount of time that he spent and the impact that had, like, that's what you want for someone who's in office. And if you can get someone with his wisdom and his dedication and his passion in office, and this goes back to what I said previously, I don't think it matters what the politics are. You want that guy in office serving you. And that to me is the biggest thing. If you know Mr. Quade, it just does not matter what the issues are or what the politics are. You want that guy, Scott Quade, serving you. And he served thousands of Medina high school students and debate students with, the highest intention. And if we can get that guy into a position where he's able to serve the state of Ohio, everyone is better off for it. So that's why I wanted to add it on. Just want to say thank you, Scott Quade, and would be, so I can't vote for you, but I would be so excited to see you in office in Ohio.
We can send you a souvenir sign anyways, And good time to mention that if you don't have a Quade sign, and definitely if you do live in his district, but even if you don't, that you can reach out to Scott or Leah. Leah, if you could drop those emails in the chat for everyone, they can connect you with the nearest sign hub, or I know that Scott has done some personal deliveries. So, if you need to request a personal delivery, I'm sure that could be arranged. And I do want to say to everyone that we actually did, we're a little bit over, and I'm sure by the time we get to the end of everybody saying, goodbye, etc., that will be more than a tiny bit over. But Matt dropped off the call and he never did debate, so we'll blame it on Matt. It's fine. So I am going to throw to Scott to give some closing remarks and thank yous and all that. And Leah, don't forget you have to unmute.
All right, am I unmuted? Okay. Well, I'm kind of at a loss right now. I originally thought I would write this little closing statement, and as soon as I started thinking about the people who were going to be on here, I knew that nothing I wrote beforehand was going to be authentic. And I'm going to apologize right now because I'm not going to make it through this without probably losing some degree of, I don't, to the folks who present, whether students or friends, colleagues, fellow advocates, I cannot thank you enough for doing this or for the very kind words that you said. I will promise you that I will do everything in my power to live up to the characterization that you presented today or tonight. I will carry this with me forever. And I will also say that there have been times during the campaign when I've had significant doubts. Early on, I was going to make the campaign itself the mission because I was all but told, you're not going to win. So the campaign was going to be the mission. And when I hear your support and your confidence and your rationale, I'm no more doubts. We're going to make this happen, and we're going to, like I said, I promise to do everything I can to live up to what you said. I'm going to make a reference here that one person in the panel is going to probably, I think, remember, and the rest of you, I'm sorry, it's going to be very specific to one person, but I think you'll catch the gist of it. I'm not going to be able to say. Andrew, you probably remember several hours spent between classes or after school or before school drawing on the whiteboard with markers and drawing connections. And there were thin lines and there were thick lines and there were lines that went one direction, lines that went both directions. And we were mapping out essentially the human interaction through relationships and the different types of relationships that there are. I see you nodding, so I'm glad you remembered that, and I don't look like a fool right now. But for the rest of you, it was just an exercise. It was something where we would, just sort of map out relational growth and interactions. And tonight was, I'm just going to say it was a bunch of thick lines going both directions, and I can't thank you enough. For those of you who were students and talked about things you learned from me, I just want to say that for anything that I ever taught you, you taught me so much more. You really did. I left the building every day knowing more about life just from being around you all, and that made me who I am, for better or worse. And I thank you for that. For those of you who we're not panelists, but we're on the line tonight, I cannot appreciate enough or cannot express my appreciation well enough for your support, financial and otherwise. I would ask one last thing, and that's that all of you, the biggest support you can give is to talk to people. It is all about relationships. Doesn't have to be somebody you know. So somebody, if you make eye contact with somebody and they smile, that's an invitation. Anymore, that's an open door, right? Talk to them and just spread the word. And it doesn't have to be politics, like Andrew was saying. counting on people voting for me who don't necessarily agree with all of my positions. I'm dedicated to represent everybody, regardless of their positions. I will do my due diligence in research and representation. So just spread the word, talk to people. That's the best thing you can do. I think that's about all I'm going to get through without breaking down. So thanks again. Appreciate your help.
All right. And I'm gonna throw to Leah and see, did we make our match? Are we there?
We made our match, guys.
Yes.
So in total from tonight's call with M's match, thank you so much for that. We have raised $1,965. That is in an hour and a half, guys. Thank you so much.
All right. You are all amazing. Thank you, Megan, for throwing in the link tree in the chat. Please follow Democrats Empower Medina. We're on socials. If you're not in Medina anymore, but you have Democratic friends that are, please send that to them. We do our best to make sure we're posting all of Scott's stuff and supporting him. Is there anything I am forgetting? Oh, I see Danielle's messaging me. The donation link will be up for 24 more hours associated with this call. So if you haven't had the chance to share it on your socials, or you haven't had the chance, maybe you're one of our panelists and didn't want to get your credit card out while you're sitting here on camera, you will have 24 hours to use that link. And then after that, you will just go back through Scott's regular website. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate you all so much. And I hope everyone has a fantastic evening.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Quade.
Thank you.
You.
Thank